Chapter 28. The Speech of Angels with Man. Angels who talk with man do not talk in their own language, but in the man's own language, and also in other languages with which he is well acquainted, but not in languages unknown to him. This is so because when angels speak with a man, they turn themselves to him and conjoin themselves with him. And this conjunction of angel with man causes both to be in like thought. And as man's thought clings to his memory, and this is the source of his speech, each of them has the same language. Moreover, when an angel or a spirit comes to a man, and by turning to him is conjoined to him, he so enters into the entire memory of the man that he hardly knows otherwise than that he is aware from himself of whatever the man knows, including his languages. I have talked with angels about this, and have said that they probably supposed that they were addressing me in my mother tongue, because it is so perceived, when yet it was not they who spoke, but I. And that this may be confirmed from the fact that angels cannot utter a single word of human language. Furthermore, human language is natural and they are spiritual. And spiritual beings cannot utter anything in a natural way. To this they replied that they were aware that their conjunction with the man with whom they are speaking is with his spiritual thought. But because his spiritual thought flows into his natural thought, and his natural thought clings to his memory, the language of the man and all his knowledge appear to them to be their own. And that this is so for this reason, that because it is the Lord's pleasure that there should be such a conjunction and, as it were, implantation of heaven with man, yet the state of man at this day is so different that this conjunction is no longer with angels, but with spirits who are not in heaven. When I talked about this with spirits also, they were unwilling to believe that it is the man who speaks, insisting that they spoke in man. Also that man's knowledge is their knowledge and not the man's knowledge. Consequently, that everything that man knows is from them. I tried to convince them by many proofs that this is not true, but in vain. Who are meant by spirits and who are meant by angels will be told in pages following, when the world of spirits is to be considered. There is another reason why angels and spirits conjoin themselves so closely with man as not to know but that what is man's is their own. Namely, that there is such conjunction between the spiritual world and the natural world in man, that the two are as if one. But inasmuch as man has separated himself from heaven, the Lord has provided that there should be angels and spirits with each individual, and that man should be ruled by the Lord through them. This is the reason for such close conjunction. It would have been otherwise if man had not separated himself, for in that case he could have been ruled by the Lord through the general influx from heaven, without spirits and angels being adjoined to him. But this subject will be specially considered in what follows, in connection with the conjunction of heaven with man. The speech of an angel or spirit with man is heard by him as audibly as the speech of man with man, yet by himself only, and not by others who are standing near. The reason is that the speech of an angel or spirit flows first into a man's thought, and by an inner way into his organ of hearing, and so sets it in motion from within, while the speech of man with man flows first into the air and by an outward way into his organ of hearing, and sets it in motion from without. Evidently then, the speech of an angel or spirit with man is heard within him, and as it equally sets the organ of hearing in motion, it is equally audible. That the speech of an angel or a spirit flows down from within, even into the ear, has been made clear to me by the fact that it flows also into the tongue, causing a slight vibration, but not with any such motion as when the speech tone is articulated into words by the man himself, by means of the tongue. It is rarely granted at the present day, however, to talk with spirits, because it is dangerous. For then the spirits know what otherwise they do not know, that they are with man, and evil spirits are such that they hold man in deadly hatred, and desire nothing more than to destroy him both soul and body, which indeed happens with those who have so indulged themselves in fantasies as to have separated from themselves the enjoyments proper to the natural man. Some also who lead a solitary life sometimes hear spirits talking with them, and without danger. But that the spirits with them may not know that they are with man, they are at intervals removed by the Lord. For most spirits are not aware that any other world than that in which they live is possible, and therefore are unaware that there are men anywhere else. This is why man on his part is not permitted to speak with them, for if he did, they would know. Those who meditate much on religious subjects and are so intent upon them as to see them, as it were, inwardly within themselves, begin also to hear spirits speaking with them. For religious subjects, whatever they are, when man dwells upon them by himself and does not modify them with various things that are of use in the world, penetrate to the interiors and dwell there, and occupy the whole spirit of the man, and even enter into the spiritual world and act upon the spirits there. Such persons are visionaries and enthusiasts, and whatever spirit they hear, they believe to be the Holy Spirit, when in fact such spirits are enthusiastic spirits. Such spirits see falsities as truths, and so, seeing them, they not only persuade themselves, but also those with whom they inflow to believe them. Such spirits, however, have been gradually removed, because they begin to lure others into evil and to gain control over them. Enthusiastic spirits are distinguished from other spirits by their believing themselves to be the Holy Spirit, and believing what they say to be divine. As man honours such spirits with divine worship, they do not try to harm him. I have sometimes talked with them, and the wicked things they infused into their worshippers were then disclosed. They dwell together towards the left in a desert place. However, to speak with the angels of heaven is granted only to those who are in truths from good, especially to those who are in the acknowledgement of the Lord and of the divine in his human, because this is the truth in which the heavens are. For, as it has been shown above, the Lord is the God of heaven. The divine of the Lord makes heaven. The divine of the Lord in heaven is love to him and charity towards the neighbour, from him. The entire heaven as a whole resembles one man. also any one society of heaven, and each angel is in a complete human form, and this from the Lord's divine human. All of which makes evident that only those whose interiors have been opened by divine truths, even to the Lord, are able to speak with angels of heaven, since it is into these truths with man that the Lord inflows. And when the Lord inflows, heaven does so also. Divine truths open the interiors of man because man has been so created as to be in respect of his internal man an image of heaven, and in respect of his external an image of the world. And the internal man is opened only by means of divine truth going forth from the Lord, because that is the light and the life of heaven. The influx of the Lord himself with man is into his forehead, and hence into the whole face, because the forehead of man corresponds to love, and the face corresponds to all his interiors. The influx of spiritual angels with man is into his head from every direction, from the forehead and temples to the whole part containing the cerebrum, because that region of the head corresponds to intelligence. The influx of celestial angels, however, is into that part of the head containing the cerebellum, and this is called the occiput, from the ears all around even to the neck, for that region corresponds to wisdom. All the speech of angels with man enters by these ways into his thought. By these means I have perceived what angels they were who spoke with me. Those who talk with the angels of heaven also see the things which are in heaven, because they are then seeing from the light of heaven, in which light their interiors are. Also, the angels through them see the things that are on the earth, because with them heaven is conjoined to the world, and the world is conjoined to heaven. For as has been said above, when angels turn themselves to man, they so conjoin themselves to him that they hardly know otherwise than that the things pertaining to the man are their own, those pertaining to his speech as well as those of sight and hearing, while man, on the other hand, has no other thought than that the things that flow in through the angels are his. In such conjunction with angels of heaven were the most ancient people on this earth, and for this reason their times were called the Golden Age. Because they acknowledged the divine under a human form, that is, the Lord, they talked with the angels of heaven as with their friends, and angels of heaven on their part talked with them as with their friends. And in them heaven and the world made one. But after those times, man gradually separated himself from heaven by loving himself more than the Lord, and the world more than heaven. In consequence, he began to feel the delights of the love of self and the world as separate from the delights of heaven, and finally to such an extent as to be ignorant of any other delight. Then his interiors that had been open into heaven were closed up, while his exteriors were open to the world. When this takes place, man is in light in regard to all things of the world, but in thick darkness in regard to all things of heaven. Since those times, it is only rarely that anyone has talked with angels of heaven, but some have talked with spirits who are not in heaven. For man's interiors and exteriors are such that they are turned either towards the Lord as their common centre, or towards self, that is, backwards from the Lord. Those that are turned towards the Lord are also turned towards heaven. But those that are turned towards self are turned also towards the world, and it is with difficulty that these can be elevated. Yet the Lord does elevate them as much as possible, by a turning of the love, which is effected by means of truths from the Word. I have been told how the Lord spoke with the prophets through whom the Word was given. He did not speak with them as he did with the ancients, by an influx into their interiors, but through spirits who were sent to them, whom the Lord filled with his aspect, and thus inspired the words which they dictated to the prophets. So it was not influx, but dictation. As the words came forth immediately from the Lord, therefore, each one of them was filled with the divine, and contained within it an internal sense, which is such that the angels of heaven perceive the words in a heavenly and spiritual sense, while men do so in a natural sense. Thus has the Lord conjoined heaven and the world by means of the Word. How spirits are filled with the divine from the Lord by aspect has also been shown. A spirit filled with the divine from the Lord does not know otherwise than that he is the Lord, and that it is the divine that is speaking, and this continues until he has finished speaking. Afterwards he perceives and acknowledges that he is a spirit, and that he spoke from the Lord and not from himself. Because this was the state of the spirits who spoke with the prophets, they said that it was Jehovah who spoke. The spirits even called themselves Jehovah, as can be confirmed not only from the prophetical, but also from the historical parts of the Word. That the nature of the conjunction of angels and spirits with man may be understood, I am permitted to mention some notable things by which it may be illustrated and verified. When angels and spirits turn themselves to man, they do not know otherwise than that the man's language is their own, and that they have no other language. For then they are there in the man's language, and not in their own, which they do not remember. But as soon as they turn themselves away from the man, they are in their own angelic and spiritual language, and know nothing about the man's language. I have had a like experience when in company with angels and in a state like theirs. I then talked with them in their language and knew nothing of my own, not remembering it. But as soon as I ceased to be in their company, I was in my own language. Another notable fact is that when angels and spirits turn themselves to a man, they are able to talk with him at any distance. They have talked with me from a distance as audibly as when they were near. But when they turn themselves away from a man and talk with each other, the man hears nothing at all of what they are saying, even if it be close to his ear. From this it was made clear that all conjunction in the spiritual world is determined by the way they turn. Another notable fact is that many spirits together can talk with a man, and the man with them. For they send one of their number to the man with whom they wish to speak, and the spirit sent turns himself to the man, and the rest of them turn to their spirit, and thus concentrate their thoughts, which the spirit utters. The spirit then does not know otherwise than that he is speaking from himself, and they do not know otherwise than that they are speaking. Thus also is the conjunction of many with one effected by turning towards him. But of these emissary spirits, who are also called subjects, and of communication by means of them, more will be said in subsequent pages. An angel or spirit is not permitted to speak with a man from his own memory, but only from the man's memory. For angels and spirits have a memory as well as a man. If a spirit were to speak from his own memory with a man, the man would not know otherwise than that the thoughts then in his mind were his own, although they were the spirit's thoughts. This would be like the recollection of something which the man had never heard or seen. That this is so has been given me to know from experience. This is the source of the belief held by some of the ancients that after some thousands of years they were to return to their former life and into all its activities, and in fact had returned. This they concluded because at times there came to them a sort of recollection of things that they had never seen or heard. This came from an influx from the memory of spirits into their ideas of thought. There are also spirits called natural and corporeal spirits. When these come to a man, they do not conjoin themselves with his thought as other spirits do, but enter into his body and occupy all his senses, and speak through his mouth and act through his members, believing at the time that all these things of the man are theirs. These are the spirits who possess man. But such spirits have been cast into hell by the Lord, and thus completely removed, and in consequence, such possessions are not possible today.